In this electrifying episode, meet the dynamic duo Jordan Taylor and Jordan Gillman, who redefine success as social media and marketing trailblazers. We explore Jordan Taylor's brainchild, Hoobie, which is revolutionary for content creators and advertisers, while Jordan Gillman transcends boundaries as an acclaimed children's book author, former rock star marketing exec, and now Hoobie's #1 fan. We talk the tea on cultural icons like Tom Brady, Joe Rogan, and even the D'Amelios.
I was surprised because I was trying to do the math on how much Duncan spent for just the talent in that, let alone the actual commercial itself. I think it's awesome.
We're sharing invaluable insights as we continue to pass the power, one episode at a time. I am in LA with the Jordans. So we've got Jordan Taylor. Is that what you want me to call you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah?
Jordan Taylor Greenfield.
Okay. And Jordan Gillman.
Yes.
Who's the author of this, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. And I think we should begin with how you two are related on the Jordans.
I'm older, the great 39, and he's my younger cousin from Boston. His grandfather, my grandmother's brother, was named Jordan, so we're both named after him. And so I came first, and I guess he was extra special, so two people needed to be named after him. So that's this guy.
That's like the coolest story.
Yeah.
Funny thing is his sister's name is Jordana because they didn't know they were going to have a boy. So there's kind of three Jordans, but
I thought Jordan was like this like legendary older figure when I was really young. Then they obviously when I lived in Boston and throughout our high school years and everything, and when he went off to college, I didn't have a relationship with him for like 10 years. Jordan's become a big brother to me again over the last 3 to 4 years in a big way, and it's been pretty cool how we've kind of like met back in this world out here, and he's been able to be a fly on the wall for some of the stuff going on and been a great sounding board for me. So I feel like Papa Jordan had something to do with this.
And I wish you both could share kind of just a very small snippet on the professional life that led you to where you are now.
I've worked in advertising since I graduated college. I worked in the ad tech world, which was when the internet was already very much born, but there was all of these companies that were powering advertising from the back end, and they were enabling advertisers to reach consumers at scale. And it was essentially a way for attention had been shifted online, video. This was pre where it was a smart idea to distribute to YouTube. So everyone was trying to get consumers to their websites, and we were the back end technology that was supporting it. The business grew quickly. We went public, and that was my first fun moment in digital.
Like what year was that?
That was close to 2010. The thing that I learned as I got more into advertising is that the closest you can get to a point of purchase and driving purchase decisions for brands was essentially where all of the money from an advertiser perspective was being spent. Where I was prior was more brand awareness. Advertisers wanted to reach audiences in this new format. Now in this new ecosystem where our competitors became Google and Facebook, it was all about content and commerce and can you drive purchase decisions for brands. So the budgets obviously grow significantly, but the whole thesis was always, are you able to stay connected with the consumer throughout the purchase journey? And by owning content, would you have a better chance of driving that purchase decision based off of the data that you have access to? And because Google is, the primary destination to where most people search and buy. And, it's the last point that you go to before making a purchase. So competitively, we had to create our own narrative and story, which was content and commerce, utilize branded content as a vehicle to form a relationship with brands. All that being said it was a success. The company was purchased by Verizon. They later became a private company that is now owned by a private equity firm, and they now own Yahoo. It's still an entity, but from there, I left after we had been acquired, and then I went to a company called The Skim, which
You left with a big payout.
Well, I mean, enough to help me now start my own entrepreneurial journey, but I think I'm still seeking that moment.
I think like your priorities shifted around that time of your life though.
Yeah, I mean I was going through a lot of like family stuff, and I just started to realize like what is this all for? Money isn't the end all be all. And so what I had thought I wanted was achieved, but it was all not. I was, there's many analogies that people say, but I climbed the wrong mountain.
That's still success for so many people. They don't ever get off that road. Do you know what I mean? They continue to do what they're supposed to do because that's how societies define success.
Absolutely. And I think a big lesson that I've learned is if your only identity is your work and work's not going well, you're not going to be going well. So overall, I think the greatest lesson or the greatest success was some of these epiphanies, realizing that success is how you define it, and make sure at the end of the day you're happy with it, because everyone's living in their own universe, and you're the one that has to look in the mirror every day and be happy with who you are.
How'd you get to Hubi?
I started off working in biotech in Boston because no one really gave a crap about consumer technology. I did some great business development stuff in my early 20s. I was always very intrigued by the impact creators and celebrities can have on brands. One of the first big celebrities that I had a relationship with was 50 Cent, who was big on the vitamin water stuff. I actually remember when I was there visiting G-Unit once back in my early to mid 20s, I would try and meet with this guy because Jordan was my big cousin that was big in media, and I tell the story way too much with him now, but I'm like, now he thinks I'm cool. But back then he would friggin' schedule me out a couple weeks. He'd be like, when I get to it. But I ended up, I built something very similar back in 2016 to a link tree. I was always a big believer that in different industries, there's a lot of fragmentation, and that at some point there needs to be some form of consolidation. That was the way I thought about it. It was really just this idea of one centralized location for social. I built an app back then, and we ended up revisiting it years later, so it all does really come full circle. The problem that I had is I built it out as a mobile application instead of a web-based product. So when people were going to click that link in bio, it was then telling them to download an app. And at that point in time, people didn't want it. Yeah, I didn't want another app. Organically, I do a good job of trying to provide value first. There was a period in my 20s from 23 to 26 where I was just hustling and trying to provide value for some of the biggest names in the world in any way I can without any expectation of making money. And just hoping that one of those would come full circle. If I keep providing value, someone will take notice and something good will come out of it. And through that, I started to build relationships with a lot of people that had social followings and a lot of the artists that would come in through Boston. And I kind of became the accommodations guy in Boston for the celebrities and creators. So if they were coming there for a show, I would get them hotel accommodations in exchange for a story post, or courtside seats to the Celtics in exchange for a story post. From that, it was cool and refreshing at first. But then I was like, okay, I should probably start to try and make some money off of this. So we ended up building an influencer check-in platform. So it was special accommodations to exactly that: hotels, restaurants, nightlife, spas, fitness facilities, in exchange for sharing the experience for certain social deliverables. I think, Jordan, you were probably even that way 5-6 years ago, where you were kind of on the edge about influencers and does it really work? And there's still not that's what we're trying to solve right now in a lot of ways, is a streamlined way where hey, I'm going to put $50,000 into this and this is what the outcome's going to be. We ended up, this is when I learned the power of real estate developers. There was a very successful real estate developer in Boston. We just built the Seaport neighborhood, and when you're trying to build these marketplaces, if you're going to get quality creators on the platform, you need a quality supply of opportunities and a quality number of businesses on there. And so he ended up being our only client for the first 6 months before the pandemic hit. And the whole neighborhood, the 75 businesses, were all now businesses on the platform because he was providing it to his tenants as sort of a perk of being in the Seaport neighborhood. And so we ended up having this, and the goal was we were going to go and scale it throughout the country. We were going to go to Sweet Green and buy Chloe and Away and Warby Parker and say, hey, this is what we just did in one location. Give us 50. And then the physical world shut down. We revisited this idea of this central location on the web. And I think that Linktree was just those stagnant, boring links at the time. And so we just built a couple of pages. And
can you tell, for those people who don't know about Hubi, can you explain it?
Yeah.
Because I only learned about it when I found out your name,
yeah.
and I'm trying to make sense of it myself. So.
Yeah, I got you. So there's a company called Linktree, which is kind of one link for many. Hubi, we ended up building, and it was really focused around the core needs of creators. And out of the gate, the couple small changes, we were the first ones to embed content on the pages where you could watch a YouTube video directly from there, or link your YouTube channel, and it would automatically update when you released a new piece of content. And then we also built this admin experience for the agencies where they could manage 50 pages at once and go in and edit them and access all the analytics in one place. The bigger vision was always the understanding of the data. We didn't want to be Linktree. We didn't want 10 million people paying us $10 a month or $7 a month to have this stripped down version of a website. We understood that if we got the most powerful people on social, the people that were actually influencing movement from one platform to the other, we would ultimately know who's influencing what. And that first party data point gives us huge insight into who's the right fit for a given opportunity.
So you can really tell if they have influence.
Yeah, so we have a marketplace layer now that matches people based on, okay, Summer Fridays, these 17 girls are a fit because over the last 30 days, they've driven 18,000 plus link clicks to this very similar product as the one that you guys are launching.
And then for the content creator, everything that they're producing is on that page, access from that page, as opposed to going to different platforms to get their content.
Yeah, exactly. So it's essentially the place that they're primarily driving their audience to from social to take action.
Any company can build this tool, and many have tried. I think the biggest differentiation and way to describe it to someone who wouldn't know what it is, it's a membership company, and their creators are members. You can't just get in as anyone. And then there's also perks of being a Hoobie member. And also just Jordan has been in the space for a while, has cultivated these relationships, have built the product with creators, really helping them understand their business. Ultimately, where they're going is the creator space is vast. There's many creators to work with if you're a brand. It's ultimately helping utilizing data to essentially connect brands with creators who ultimately will fit the need of the business and drive sales.
Takes the emotion out of it, yeah.
How are you working to make it better? What do you want it to do it's not doing now?
Automation. I mean, I think that I want to build, there's certain inefficiencies along the creator path journey. I think that's just the efficiency of like, I want it in real time and I want it to all be smooth in a way where I don't have to have my hands on this and it can do the same exact thing.
And what about for a small time creator? How do you become a member?
We do now have a subscription offering where an aspiring creator that wants to be like Alex Earl, I think we're charging $8 or something a month for that. That's not my primary focus though. I think that Hoobie is going to continue to grow into something where that person that does want to become a creator and might not have that following yet, Hoobie is the place for the launch pad for them, where they come for educational resources and case studies and inside access to the behind-the-scenes stories from David Dobrik or from Alex Earl.
Well, I had a TikTok expert on yesterday, and we were talking about her, and I was saying, but can she continue? Because as she grows up, are we going to be as interested in all this stuff? And I guess her audience is just going to evolve with her. I mean, just like Taylor Swift has gone from being 16, 17-year-old, and now she's in her 30s, and she's still got a massive following of all ages.
I'm biased, but I think Alex is a stud, and I think she will always be a stud. And I think people will always be intrigued. I think there's just layers to her that people don't even know about, and I think she's like...
Hope so.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful for that as a woman. I'm hoping that there are layers that we have not seen.
She's great, dude.
Okay, it's the last thing, because you dropped Tom Brady. What did you think of the Dunkings ad for the Super Bowl?
I was surprised because I was trying to do the math on how much Duncan spent for just the talent in that, let alone the actual commercial itself. I think it's awesome, and I love Good Will Hunting. Yeah. Robin Williams is like my favorite actor of all time. I love seeing Ben Affleck even out of the house. He's like one of my favorite actors of all time. I think he's had a hard run. I hope Tom's gonna like put him under his wing and get him on a healthier lifestyle. So it was great.
I just wonder what it's like for him, because he was in a few commercials, wasn't he? Oh. Like Tom, wasn't he in like 3 different commercials? Yeah. Like, aren't you supposed to? I mean, it seems like let's just focus on Duncan this year's Super Bowl. He was in like 4 different commercials.
Quick,
maybe he wants to be an actor.
Tom didn't have an Instagram 5 or 6 years ago, and the amount of money Tom's made off the field since launching that Instagram it will probably at some point soon level out to the money he made on the field.
Wow, that's crazy.
And Gilad's done an incredible job, because people would think even when he was playing, like what is Tom doing all over Instagram? Like, he must be shooting content all day. No, he wasn't. They would do as much as they could possibly do with 5 minutes. I did the do with the sign thing with him in Soho. That was like 12 minutes in and out. And like, it's just like, how can we do as much with as little as we can with somebody who's focused on being the best athlete in the world?
Well, for those people watching and listening who are keen to monetize content creation, and they're not quite at Tom Brady's level, what advice do you guys have for them?
First of all, understanding your audience, whether you have 1,000 followers and every one of those 1,000 followers is going to purchase based off of your recommendation, that might be more influence than someone with 1 million. So a lot of influencers that have large sizes don't have the ability to move product for brands, which at the end of the day, it's an amazing place to start. I'm not suggesting that there isn't a world of brand advertising dollars to invest within the creator marketplace, but if you're a creator and you have influence over your audience, the question is, what are you influencing them to do?
And the ones who have 1 million, but they really don't have the influence to make people do something, that's because they just haven't built up their engagement with their following.
If you're a podcaster that's just putting out podcast clips to your social page and you haven't built a personal brand, you're just syndicating your content through that platform. So potentially your audience is just getting inspirational content through that, but they're not looking to you on that platform for advice on what products to purchase. Whereas there's certain creators who all they do is create content relative to their lifestyle and what brands insert into their lifestyle decisions.
You need to have such an obsessed audience because you're providing so much value to them and they're coming there for XYZ reasons. And it is so niche. Like you'll see some girl that we just accepted for a skincare campaign we were torn on because she had so many page views and so many clicks on Amazon, but she had this cool curly hair. And all of the clicks that she got prior were just hair products. And they're like, we're like, she's not going to sell skincare.
The part that Jordan kind of skipped over was that the closest a brand can get to a point of purchase, which if you're watching content on Instagram, which isn't as intuitively as a shopping platform as like a TikTok, you have to go to the creator's link in their bio and click. And so Jordan, as the owner of Hubi, or as the technology behind that, he's able to see firsthand that journey. So someone's seeing an ad or not some content about hair, going to the Hubi link inside, clicking it, and then seeing after the fact that they go to the Amazon store to purchase the product. It's a very compelling thing, data point to have access to.
I think that creators should be doing exactly that. Holy crap, they're actually not interested in this. They're interested in this. I need to do, like, in terms of the products they're sharing, in terms of the brand opportunities, all that. But I find that like people are just stubborn and always want to be like what they're not.
The coolest part about where advertising is going is the trackability and the ability to look at a piece of content and make a point of purchase directly within it or one click away from it, and how amazing the platforms are supporting that behavior. So Hubi being the intermediary between platform to purchase and the in-between platform. The other thing that I mention a lot to creators and talk about is, at this moment in time, the platform owns the relationship with your audience. So what are you doing to move your audience off platform? If you're always reliant on social and driving purchase decisions from that platform, there's a limitation. Not everyone is ready to just click and buy directly from that platform. So if you have ownership in your own channels and you can work with brands in that capacity, that's my favorite thing to talk about with creators.
What about like the channels on Instagram that they started where you can
Yeah, I think that's
follow?
helpful. I don't know what engagement is like within those. I'm sure certain
I joined a few, but I dropped out.
Overall, it's still anything that Facebook owns directly, to where you still can't. You can look at the user's Instagram handle name, but you don't know their email address, and you're not able to capture that information on Instagram or any of the platforms. Those platforms just tell you, you have 50 million people, half of which are male, female. Your household income is X, but those are just high-level marketing metrics. The ability to pinpoint down to the, address and first name, last name, birthday, it helps you form a different relationship with your audience.
So it would just be more personal than what they're seeing on the social media content.
It's a powerful tool, but particularly because you own that data point.
Also the security of it. I mean, Meta and TikTok were both. They both were under a pretty stressful points over the last 3 years, where both of them were in front of, I think both of them went in front of Congress, didn't they? For a minute there, people actually thought TikTok was going to be gone, and then you have the
poor guy from TikTok had to go again recently.
Yeah, but it's like, the D'Amelios, for instance, the last 3 years they built this empire, primarily being TikTokers, 60 million followers. That platform could have got pulled if they didn't transition their audience somewhere else, or if they didn't have that follow-up contact with them, then it all could have just, the rug could have got swept out of them, right?
Well, how important is it for the content creator not to rely on one platform?
You can't rely on one, I don't think.
Well, it depends on what you're creating. I think the initial format was create on one platform. Like Mr. Beast is probably the best example. But
Cover of Time magazine, crazy, right?
But he specifically leaned into YouTube, understand that, better than anyone in the world. He talked about same strategy. They understand the nuances of the algorithm of TikTok and did a channel-specific content strategy for TikTok. I think the film one piece of content and distribute across all platforms is the old way. I think the new way is that the channel has its own nuances, and you have to lean into those nuances in order to be successful on the channel.
I think the most interesting thing about Mr. Beast, he was so obsessed with the data. He is a genius in terms of like the data and like the studying and the digging in on this stuff. If Mr. Beast was just to be given a microphone to go on and do like a stand-up thing, it's not going to be that intriguing, which I think it shows that there's actually like opportunity and skill sets. There's a lot of people that do really well on social that wouldn't do well in real life with just having a conversation with people. Meanwhile, they're talking to millions of people. There's nothing crazy special about them from a talent standpoint, but they're doing those because those have proven to work.
I was very keen to learn that he has Beast Philanthropy.
Yeah.
And so he's actually giving back.
Isn't he in North Carolina too? Isn't that your
Yeah. So I think that's something that as content creators, as people really make it big, that the philanthropy should be part of the journey.
What you gave in your life is what you'll be remembered for. The amount of eyeballs you reached and money you made, no one remembers that. But what you leave behind, the people you've impacted, is really all you have. So philanthropy is, it's something that I spend a lot of time thinking about. What will I leave this earth being remembered for? Certainly not my professional accolades. And so I'm constantly thinking about ways, causes.
American Cancer Society, I saw online that
Yes.
you're a big
I
supporter.
would used to run. I'm a marathon runner, and I used to run the New York City Marathon. I've run it 9 times prior to the pandemic. So I've always thought of impact. I've always tied impact into what I do in my personal life and professional life. It started with the American Cancer Society, and then I wrote a children's book during the pandemic called Mirror Face. It's during the pandemic, as I mentioned before, the pandemic just kept me super isolated, and I wasn't able to do what I always loved to do, which was connect to people and be out in the world. And the Mirror Face was this book that I had created during the pandemic to ultimately support not only children, but their parents with the same epiphany. I think the idea is we all spend a lot of time in front of the actual mirror or the mirrors of our phone, and where sometimes can be self-critical, and sometimes our sense of self is built around what others think of us. And
especially now with all the likes, right?
Right,
I mean,
with all the
everything on social media, if you don't get enough likes, then
it's a gamified system. And for me, for sure, social media was just pouring gasoline on to what the physical world was for me already. It was just a way to get more friends and get them to like me. But I realized, those weren't actual friends and those weren't actual likes. It was just, part of this platform that I was on.
I love that. And during the pandemic, you did a book and I started the podcast.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I was writing for the newspaper in Singapore, and I was doing a monthly column, and I'd always wanted to do a podcast, and I had some followers on Instagram, right? And the young women were down. Yeah. And I thought, I want to do something and give conversations of hope. And it sounds so freaking hokey, I know. But I am a firm believer that if you can make somebody smile, if somebody has a better day because of the content you're doing, it doesn't matter if it's hokey. Yeah. So started the podcast, and just delighted to be here with both of you and learning so much. But earlier when you were talking about the podcast and you were talking about whether you put clips and all that out, as a podcast host, I do so much work going into these podcasts. Do I need to build the brand more so that people are more vested in me and not just the content coming out of the podcast?
Personal branding is for sure, I think, the what every content creator is ultimately trying to do. Whether that can come out through your personality on social media, I think is separate. To be likable and to be authentic on that channel, I think ultimately will like Joe Rogan for me is someone who I listen to probably the most frequently on. I've grown to like him as a human, which is why I listen to his podcast. I mean, the podcast in itself is great, and there's many podcasters that I've learned about through his channel.
Lex Friedman.
Don't you love? Yeah, he's incredible, yeah. And that I wouldn't have,
Huberman Labs,
like all of these amazing podcasters. However, Joe Rogan's personal brand was, he's a hunter, he's a father, he's a comedian, he's an actor, so he has lots of flavor, and I think that flavor enabled me to have a different opinion of what the show would be. So I think your personal brand helps people understand you, because if you are awesome, you're likely going to have an awesome podcast.
So I'm going to get super, super personal here on this one, because with the podcast, and on my TikTok. They don't meld because my TikTok is like mostly fashion. So would you start a new TikTok channel for the podcast?
No, I mean, personally, it is beneficial to put, I mean, I'm sure we can, after this, like look at how other podcasters do it, but I don't think there's a singular methodology. I think comedians in particular all have their own, personal channels. I think most of them put their podcast as a part of the distribution within their personal channels. I don't think they create separate social channels for their podcast distribution. The difference is that algorithmically, if you're putting fashion content out on TikTok and then you're pushing a clip of your podcast talking about media,
Still has the cool look going.
no, but
Still
without
rocking
question, I'm just saying algorithmically, if your show was about fashion, I think it would be, maybe the right. Whereas comedians, they're always funny on social media, so it would make sense for them to put that in their feed as well. So I'm not suggesting changing the approach whatsoever. I just think the algorithm supports the content that you're speaking about.
Yeah, I'm just too multifaceted.
Yeah,
I just have way too many things
You
going
broke the
on,
system.
I was expecting like something. If you wanted to become famous and you only had 1 hour a week to do some form of content, I think that podcast is by far the best, because I think that you can sit there for an hour. You can then break it up into 25 clips of just the highlighted moments, and then you can test those out on all the platforms, or you can go and do a photo shoot and you can spend 25 minutes getting one picture that's going on your feed that has like very little substance. I think it's all about the clips. And I think especially with TikTok or even on like Twitter, like I don't think there's such thing, especially if you're not like leaving it in your feed on your profile, there's no such thing as posting too much. You can delete it 7 minutes in if it's not getting the jump that you want.
But the other thing that you just reminded me of is that, going back to what we were saying before, you can't listen to the podcast on the social platform. So you still have to find an in-between, whether it's your link in bio to go to your podcast, or you have to go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify to search the show and then find and discover that. Whereas YouTube in particular is a platform that many podcasts are consumed on. Mm-hmm. So YouTube is probably the most advantageous as a social platform.
I also think with growth on any of these platforms, I think that the platforms are like biased and excited about like the new thing they're pushing. I also thought it was hilarious what happened with Threads. Everyone was so hype on that.
Threads, my God, what a fail.
It was the cleanest onboarding experience and transition of any platform of all time. There's one podcast where they're like two strong personalities making bets on like what was going to happen with Threads. And one really, really smart venture capitalist was like so stock up on it. And it was like, this is the greatest tech story of all time. It's like, this is textbook. And then it just plummeted. I literally haven't been on there since like the first week.
Well, I've done so little on it, but yet I keep growing.
Without question, it's a class on cross promotion, like how they cross promoted it through Instagram and Facebook. So probably all of your Facebook followers or Instagram followers are just automatically following.
Another thing I wanted to talk to you about, when you bring up Facebook, it makes me think about demographics. I mean, for people over 45, are they just kind of out of the market when it comes to like collaborations for content creation?
I think there's a huge opportunity, and Gary Vee would get so mad at you for asking that question. He's like,
I love Gary Vee.
Never too late.
I love Gary Vee.
This is like one segment of it. Like I think that there is such a huge opportunity, and I've leaned into this, and there's like social proof behind it. With like you have these kids like Josh Richards or kids like David Dobrik that have more power on social exponentially than somebody like Akon does right now. But they want to freaking hang with Akon and they want to be in his music video, and that's valuable to both sides, because for the young guys, it's like, holy shit, that's who was singing at my middle school dance. And then for the old guy,
if you're, especially from a brand perspective, if you're 45 plus, you have money. I mean, you can buy in television. They have Nielsen demographic where you buy audiences. Like adult 45 plus is an audience that you can purchase, and there's lots of brands who want that audience. I mean, at the end of the day, no matter how old you are and what you're marketing to, there's an audience for that.
What about Facebook and Snapchat? Are those places content creators should be spending time?
Yeah. Snapchat's like the favorite platform of creators right now.
It's monetizing
big time. Like creators love that right now. They're making a fortune on that. They're able to hit a certain number of snaps a day, and they know they're gonna make X amount of dollars. Like I have some friends that are making like several $100,000 a month on Snapchat, not posting anything but themselves.
It's hard for me to get my head around.
It's crazy, right? Even with like the exchange type work, like a lot of like on Creator Pass, people will get a free trip to Coachella or to Art Basel or whatever it may be in exchange for they have to do posting deliverables. And now with like Snapchat, it's like a double no-brainer for them because they're like, oh, I can get the hotel suite for free. I'm going to post that on Snapchat, and I'm going to get the free experience, and I'm going to get paid by Snapchat.
But there's two sides of the conversation. One is, can creators make money on those platforms? And then secondarily, are audiences using those platforms? Snapchat in particular, there's the utility of that, to my understanding, is primarily around messaging. And it's become the preferred go-to messaging to where a lot of younger demographics are using that.
That's all my children use.
Right. In exchange of text.
It's their news.
They WhatsApp me, but
Right.
they Snapchat each other. They
Right.
Snapchat everybody.
Right. So there's clearly, a tremendous demand for the product itself. And then, I don't think adults 45 plus are on the channel. So if you're an advertiser looking for that demographic, you'd probably have some challenges.
Yeah.
Snapchat had the best ad that I saw. Like, it was storytelling around the idea of like no likes. And I thought it was just so genius how they like leaned into that. I think they've done a great job at branding to this next generation. And I do think that, like, I don't know why, but I think the auto delete's kind of like refreshing. I miss the 90s. I wish I was your age. I wish I was like going to prom when like there was still like maybe a crappy phone that you could maybe take a picture on.
When we were going to college, Facebook was just becoming popular, and you had to have a college email address to get on. And at that time, it was still like nostalgic and kind of cool. And then it just became bigger and bigger and bigger. And then the likes became bigger. And what you started to post, you started to become much more conscious of. And it was very much a new world. Your new self was being born.
If you had to rate the platforms for a content creator,
It completely depends, depending on what you're creating.
In terms of importance,
yes.
think that if you like your online resume today as a creator is Instagram. I think it still is like if somebody's going to check if you're legit, they're going to go to your Instagram. I think that TikTok is picking up in terms of the brand dollars, and it'll be interesting to see how the Snapchat stuff impacts it. But I think that Instagram still holds it.
Not to plug Hoobie, but they have specific data to understand what consumption is happening on each platform. And first and foremost, depending on what you're creating and who your audience is, that helps determine I think it would stack rank differently dependent on who your audience is and how you're serving them with content.
Should have said this at first, but like David's audience or like the McDonald's sisters, I think of a lot. The people that ended up making the most money were the people that were doing the long format YouTube stuff like 5-6 years ago. Like those are the people
Right.
that they're so attached. They feel like they know them.
Well, yeah, YouTube has a built-in monetization engine. So if your aim is monetization, and their CPMs are very high. So certain creators aren't even doing brand direct deals. They're just getting compensated 7 figures, 8 figures just through YouTube advertising.
Quick personal question. I know you're recently married.
Yes.
Right. So any plans for children to
Yeah,
read the book?
we're talking about it now. We're both, I think, have our fears, but are working through the fears.
Oh my
and-
God, it's
Yeah,
such horse crap that he says that because he sees my life and he's literally Jordan's come through at a huge time for me because I it's been a lot building this stuff in the last couple of years, and I'll say I'm fine to everyone, and Jordan just digs and digs and digs and asks questions. The fact that you see me able to be a pretty decent dad at this point in my life with everything going on, you and Tova are sitting there being like, this is gonna be a cakewalk. Jordan does it.
No, yeah, we I know.
I can do it.
Yeah, I definitely know we'll be great parents. So it's more so we just moved. We were living in New York City prior to the pandemic. We moved to Phoenix during the pandemic, and then now live in LA about a year. So
How is that? Because I love New York, and before Singapore, I was in New York, and LA for me,
I personally, I go 100 miles per hour. So any environment that can bring me to like anything less than 100 is great. And LA is just, and I now get why New Yorkers would always make fun of LA. It's just, obviously your day is quite longer in New York. It's much different. It's fast paced. It's hustle and bustle. Here, you're just kind of forced to be a little bit slower. You have a commute for sure, a long one in most cases, and the culture isn't as much around of
maybe
work.
the airport.
Yeah, maybe at the airport, but I like it.
worse.
I need it. My nervous system needs a little LA grounding.
Okay, well, tell me, as a father, are you worried about social media for your child? Is this like?
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, I'm worried about it. I'll be a lot more worried when I have a baby girl.
But your daughter's going to be a tough girl. I mean,
Yeah, she will. I think that social media it really magnifies the good and the bad. I think in terms of the exchange of ideas, it's a really powerful thing. I do think that from the mental health aspect of it, continuing to compare yourselves and just do it on repeat all day long, I think there are issues surrounding that with kids, and I think it's just like you need to put emphasis on them, and hopefully I'll be able to spend more and more time with my kids as the business continues to
do really well.
Hopefully mature here, and we get more support and help around it. I think you just have to like do the little things with your kids. I think you need to spend time with them. I think you need to get outdoors. I think you need to have them really become passionate about like real skills in life.
What about AI on content creation?
Oh my God, don't even get me.
You have to listen to the episode of Joe Rogan just had Dr. Phil on, and he's launching a new media company about this specifically, but they talked a lot about TikTok in the United States versus TikTok in China, and how there the algorithm and the AI behind the product is incentivizing and encouraging engagement around what you would want a child to consume. Positivity, success, you can do anything. Yeah. Versus here, it's entirely, there's no filter. Yeah, like you can get easily consumed by really information that you shouldn't be receiving at that age, where your mind isn't fully formed and you don't have the autonomy to understand the complexity of what's actually happening there and how you can fabricate these stories on social media. Yeah. None of it is actually, most of it, I don't want to say none, but depending on the environment or who it is, it's not necessarily true. So you're building this false sense of self around something that is a movie. It's not real.
I mean, I think it's coming. It's inevitable.
You use GBT?
Yeah, all the time.
It's the most powerful. Like, I just got hit with this wave like 6 months ago on this stuff, and I'm obsessed with it, and it drives Bianca insane because I literally get kicked off GBT4 every day for hitting the limit. I think if there's any advice to say there's a 17-year-old kid that doesn't want to go to college and just wants to travel the world, learn GBT4 and learn Zapier. And you can integrate anything for newsletters, for copywriting, for businesses. There's so many different use cases for it. And like I said, I don't normally geek out on stuff like this. I think for me, the light bulb went off that like, holy crap, it doesn't matter that I don't have all of this information up here related to medicine or whatever it is. You can just operate these things, and if you can learn how to conversate with them in a way that like actually produces the right output, that's going to be the people that are going to be the most successful 10 years from now.
That's extraordinary, ChatGPT. Okay, last question. Where do you see yourself at 60?
I mean, I hope providing value to the world that's bigger than myself, connected to a purpose that is meaningful to me and to the world, and then I'm working on something that is creatively inspiring, provides value for others in a positive way.
That all sounds so utopian.
Yeah. So
I love that.
In actuality, I mean, I think life comes down to your loved ones and having amazing loved ones and family and amazing friends. And I just hope that that grows. My family grows, and I have amazing friends around me.
I want to, in 30 years, or where I picture myself being in 30 years, I hope I have a couple more kids. I would love to live by the beach somewhere. I would love to be taking bets on kids that remind me of myself maybe 5 or 6 years ago, because I don't think I was very rough around the edges, and I don't think anyone on paper would think that this stuff would have actually taken off in the way it did.
I wish I had more 60-year-olds in my life. There's a level of wisdom that I hope at that age I'm able to just pass that wisdom on to others, and that I don't have to be working to figure out my life still, and making money and trying to afford my lifestyle, but ultimately that I'm at a stage to where I have knowledge that would be valuable to people now in this seat right now.
But by the time you're 60, because I'm 55, by the time you're 60, you're going to have your friends, your like-minded friends that you've grown up with. But what you're going to find is you're going to have so many younger people in your life because you're going to want to remain relevant.
Right.
Yeah. And the only way to do that is to make sure that you say yes to life and the new things. And that means keeping the young people in your life too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is what I try to do. Y'all are fantastic. Is there anything else you want to put out there that you feel like Althea is going to say? Why didn't you say
Well,
X?
the only major point is, Jordan's Creator Pass is really enabling brands, easier for brands to engage with creators. it's a large ecosystem of content creators. As we talked about today, it's like the nuances are tremendous. Like Creator Pass is the destination that if you're a brand trying to work with creators, they're the best destination to make that data driven and as seamless and operationalized, and I'd say like self-service to some at any extent. They have a team of people supporting it as well, but I do think that is for sure an area. If you're a brand listening or you want to do more influencer marketing, like Hoobie, what they're building with Creator Pass is an amazing tool to support that.
Hoobie all the way. I think he must be on the payroll.
I gotta start paying him. I'm not. I'm just got.
You better put him on the payroll.
I know, and I gotta start paying him for therapy.
It's been exemplary today. You guys are awesome.
Thank you.
You so much.
Appreciate
So
the
good
knowledge
meeting you.
and the wisdom, and you guys were just fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's awesome.
Hey, Power Tribe. Thanks for watching, listening, and yes, subscribing. Hopefully, we've elevated your day, since that's our aim on Pass the Power. Available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Recording and exploring content creation in LA with Gush Cloud for this new season was nothing short of epic, both entertaining and enlightening. I hope you agree. Or not. Let me know how you feel for real. Your feedback fuels our journey. Drop me an email at pp@paigeparker.com. If you want more behind-the-scenes magic, follow at Paige Parker on Instagram and TikTok. And please visit gushcloud.com for more information on my production partner. Let's keep the good vibes flowing while we pass the power, one episode at a time.